So I've been lucky enough to have my hands on Avowed for a couple of weeks now, thanks to Obsidian and Xbox, and I'll be straight up honest with you guys, I made a lot of little mistakes early on and missed a few things here and there that would have been very handy to know a lot sooner, because there is a hell of a lot to learn when you start playing this game. There is a lot of lore and stuff. There's just a lot to take on early on. And so today I wanted to run you guys through 10 things that I wish I knew sooner in Avowed. Now, the first thing that I wish I knew a lot sooner, don't get me wrong, I did eventually figure this out probably 6 or 7 hours into the game, but it's not something that I knew early enough that it sort of changed the way that I was playing. For those who didn't know, you can just store stuff in your camp from literally anywhere. You don't actually even have to go to your camp. All you need to do is go to your inventory and it will show you the button on screen that you can just store this essentially in your chest at the camp from absolutely anywhere. As far as I know, this even actually works in combat and stuff like that. So that is something I wish I knew a lot sooner, simply because there were items that I wasn't picking up. There was like duplicates of weapons I already had, for example, where I just thought, nah, there's no point carrying that. It's just going to encumber me. But that is not the way to play this game. Store every single thing that you don't want to keep, and eventually you can just go and sell them and stuff like that. Once you're in the mid to late game, obviously you probably won't need to because you'll have enough money, but early on, just pick everything up, and if you need to store stuff because you're encumbered or whatever, you can do that from anywhere. You can even break it down from here as well, meaning you can break down the weapons and get materials that you can then use to upgrade them and stuff like that. So now that you guys know that early on, go out there and just literally pick up every single item that you see. Now, speaking of camp, something that is very, very handy to know that, again, it doesn't straight up tell you until you actually go to a camp and do this. You can fast travel to a camp, you can then rest and it will restore your health and stuff like that. And then instead of leaving the camp and it just sort of changes back to daytime and you're at the camp, you can just leave the camp and there will be the option to leave to back where you already were before you entered the camp. So let's just say you're entering an area where you can see a bunch of enemies and you're super low health, you've got no potions or anything like that, and you want to go in there and find, you know, maybe there's some items that you know are going to be in there, or hell, you just want to get into a fight, but you know you're not well equipped to go into that fight. All you need to do is just travel to your camp, and then when you exit, you can just leave exactly where you were originally, and now you can go into that fight with full health and increase your chances of winning. So that's something that is definitely worth knowing, even for like exploring, for example. If you're deep into the wilderness and you don't really know how you're going to get back to where you were because you can't remember the way that you went, well, you can just get back there immediately once you leave your camp. Now, something else I definitely did not find out until probably 10 or so hours into the game. Maybe I'm just an absolute dipshit, and to be honest, that is probably realistic in this situation, but there is an ability that you have unlocked right away, which is essentially a stealth attack, and this is one of your godlike abilities. What it does is it essentially spawns like a ethereal blade in your hand when you stealth attack enemies, and it is the first godlike ability that you have, but it is already unlocked, so it doesn't really tell you that, hey, here's this ability you can use. The only time, or I guess I should say the first time that you see this screen is when you unlock the first ability, but because you've just unlocked that new ability, you're kind of more focused on that one, and it is very easy to miss the Divine Thorn ability that, like I said, is unlocked from the very beginning of the game. So do not miss out on that. It is actually really fun playing this game in a bit of a stealthy way. In order to use this, all you need to do is just crouch up behind enemies, and if they aren't aware that you're there and you attack them, it'll give you a really cool animation and is essentially a one-hit kill. Now, something else that I definitely wish I knew sooner, because there were some underwater areas early on that I now think I didn't actually explore. In this game, if you see water that is deep enough to swim in, you pretty much always want to go swimming, because there are a lot of valuables that I've found hidden underwater in some pretty obvious areas that are still pretty easy to miss if you didn't know that, you know, that is the case. A lot of games don't do that, and a lot of games do that, and this is one of those games that there are a lot of things hidden under the water, even in random places. Like, for example, in Paradise, the main city in the game, there are just like little channels that are pretty easy to miss, and if you go swimming, there are some chests with some really good items in there. So if you see water, go for a swim. There is almost certainly going to be something awesome hidden underwater. Now, before we go any further, if you guys are interested in more Avowed content and you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. There is plenty more on the way, so make sure you don't miss out. Now, I just mentioned about sort of exploring Paradise and even the water portions of the city and stuff like that, but that is not just the case for the water portions. It is worth exploring the city of Paradise from pretty much every direction you can think of. For example, there are some really easy ways to get onto rooftops and stuff like that. This isn't the type of game where you can only really walk around the streets. You can full on like climb buildings, and there is stuff really high up. I've actually found some of my best items of armor and stuff way up on the rooftops that I initially did not think I'd be able to get to. So it's worth noting in this game that if anything looks even remotely like you can get on top of it, then there is a good chance that you can, even if it is in a bit of a roundabout way. Some of them aren't as obvious as others, but it is definitely worth exploring. And hell, there's even a lot of like jump spots and stuff. I'm going to do a video going through some of these areas that you can get to, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But there's a lot of jump spots around the city where there are big gaps, and if you can jump across there, there's some really cool hidden items and stuff like that. So be on the lookout, especially like I said in Paradise. This is kind of the case for the entire map, but obviously with Paradise being such a big urban area, there are a lot of rooftops and stuff that you can jump around, and there are some pretty cool items to find. Now, something I wish I knew a lot sooner too is to do with the Grimoire, which is essentially like a book full of spells that you can get pretty early on in the game. You'll find one of these on your way through the, I guess, tutorial section. And the Grimoire spells are really, really good. But something that I wish I knew sooner is that you can actually unlock these skills so that you can use them without having to have the Grimoire in your hand, which essentially frees it up to use a different weapon or a shield or whatever you want to use in your offhand. All you need to do is go to the abilities tab and then go to the like wizard tab there. And as you can see with these skills here over on the right, if you unlock them, it'll unlock them permanently, meaning you don't need the Grimoire, and you can actually put them into your quick keybinds, which is very, very clutch. It's not only good if you have a mage playstyle. Like I said, you could just like dual wield some wands and not have to use the Grimoire, or even if you're playing a non-mage playstyle and you're using like a sword and a shield, for example, you can still use magic with both of those things in your hands. So I highly recommend doing this early on, just at least get like one or two of these spells that you can use at any given time. It is definitely going to make you a lot more overpowered than simply not using these spells. Now, something else very handy to know is that in this game, ice, whether it's through magic or even there are some like ice grenades and stuff like that, they will freeze water in this game, which is pretty cool. Now, the game eventually does tell you this, but it's probably about 6 or 7 hours in. And now that you guys know this, you can do it immediately because there are some pretty prominent water sections very early on in the game. And I definitely wish I knew this sooner, because now I know that there's a lot of areas I'm going to have to kind of go back to and use the ice to walk around the water sections in order to jump onto areas that I wouldn't have been able to get to otherwise. So keep that in mind. If it looks like you can get to an area but there is water in the way, use some ice magic or even throw an ice grenade and you'll be able to jump onto the ice and get across those areas. Now, the next one is something that I did actually know heading into the game, and that's just through the research that I've done for content leading up to the game. But for those of you who didn't know, you can play this game in third person, and it's something that isn't very obvious because pretty much all of the marketing, if not essentially every single piece of marketing in every trailer, it's all been shown in first person. So a lot of people are going to think that this is a purely first person game, and although it is definitely designed in a way that's trying to make it better in first person, it just feels like a first person game in my opinion. It can still be played in third person, which I think a lot of people are going to miss. So if you're on PC, all you need to do is press U and that will bring up third person, or if you're using a controller both on the Xbox or the PC, then all you need to do is hold the right stick and that will put it into third person. I've actually been changing in between for the most part. I do definitely prefer first person, it just feels better, but I've just found some pretty cool armor throughout my playthrough, so every now and then I put it into third person, especially when I'm exploring, because it is pretty cool to see some of the armor and stuff in this game. Now, something else worth noting as well is that you can refill your essence from dead enemies, and it is worth doing this before you finish a battle and then you use an essence potion. Don't do that until you go and pick up all of the essence from those dead enemies. If you see an enemy who you've killed and they've got this like purple glow above them, you just want to go up, and as soon as you get close enough, you will sort of absorb that essence and it will give you a little bit back. As far as I know, this mostly only happens when you kill them with magic attacks. So if you kill someone with a sword, I think it can still happen, but I think the chances are just a bit lower. And so if you're playing a mage build, this is really, really handy to know, because you can kill a bunch of enemies, regain some essence from them, and that can over time save you quite a few potions, which is definitely very clutch because they're pretty damn expensive and they're actually pretty hard to come by if you're not buying them. Now, the last tip is also something that I did know leading into the game, but I only knew it again through researching the game, and it's something the game doesn't quite tell you unless you actually go looking for it. There is transmog in this game, which for those who don't know is that essentially means that you can equip an armor set that's got like the best stats in the game, for example. But if you don't like the look of it, you can also then equip a different look, meaning you're wearing one set of armor, but visibly you're wearing a different set, if that makes sense. So if you guys have some really, really good armor, but you just don't like the look of it, there's other stuff in your inventory that you think looks cooler, well, just equip the good one, and then you can transmog and wear the cool one anyway. And that's something that, again, like I said, I'm sure a lot of people will find this on their own, but it doesn't really throw it in your face, unlike a lot of other games that do have transmog. But that is it for 10 things I wish I knew sooner in Avowed, guys. I'm keen to hear all of your thoughts down below, so be sure to leave a comment. There is a lot of content on the way. Like I said, I'm going to be going through some of the best items you can get early on, best armor and best weapons and all those sorts of things. And I'm going to be going into some in-depth build guides in order to show you guys how to best set up your own build for each specific playstyle. So keep your eyes peeled for that. There is plenty on the way. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.